So, welcome to today's talk with Employee Retention 2023. So, we're going to look at three things today. We're going to look at the key issues impacting employee retention. We are going to then look at a new business approach, a more modern business approach that has a direct impact on employee retention, just naturally as a result of the way you're putting operations into playing your business. And then we're going to look at three areas you can look at in your business so that you can better overcome employee retention issues. I'd love to know your intention for attending today. If it's a case of you know that employee retention is an issue for people out there, is that something that's a big thing for people out there? Yep. Anybody starting to notice differences in your company? Are you starting to notice maybe people starting to be more disengaged? You're worried about going in that direction towards employee retention. That's a common thing. Anybody already there? Anybody already feeling like you're losing more people than you have previously? Yep. So, a little bit about me. That's me. In my project manager days, I was running a training event that day, so I had to have on the coordinated colour so people knew to spot me as the RTE of the day. So I was a project manager for a dozen years, 10 of them in corporate companies in London. I was upgrading systems, I was learning what I could to better support the employees in the teams I was running, because I felt that was really important to selfishly get my projects finished like on time, to budget, all that side of things. But I was close to the people I was working with. I built up a relationship with them. I wanted them to be happy in what they were doing. So that was important to me. So in 2013, I started looking outside of project management. What else could I learn that would have an impact on what was going on in the business? And I started learning things like NLP, life coaching. I learned about energy tools. So lots of different things that then I was starting to push into work. 2017, like so many people before me, I had enough of corporate companies, all the red tape, had to jump out. I went to work for a mentor of mine, and I've been working with small companies and startups ever since then, helping them to implement their ways of operating their business, and founded CBS, Conscious Business Solutions, in 2020 as a way of actually helping small businesses put in place these ways of operating that are really going to support their employees and ensure that it's a happier, healthier company all round. So let's look at the current employee retention situation. Here's some stats for you. This is percentage of workers forecast to leave their job in 2023. So this is current statistics from a couple of different sources. So globally, 51% of people, 51% of the workers in these reports are looking to leave their job. In Europe, 34%, so a little bit easier than globally. But UK, we're a little bit higher than the average in Europe at 35.6%. And there's a cost implication to this. There's the obvious. If someone resigns, you're going to have to hire and train a new employee to replace them, right? But you've also got these other things listed here. You've got the lack of productivity. You've got the potential reduction in morale in your department. So depending on who the person is, how many people they work with, how many people are actually leaving, it could have a negative impact on your culture as well. It's going to impact customer service, again, especially if they're customer facing. Having somebody who built up that good rapport, that good relationship with a customer, and then someone new's coming into it, it's going to have an impact on it. And there's going to be that loss of knowledge as well. Even if things are kind of written down, there's going to be things that someone in the job for a couple of years just intuitively knows. And the cost of this. According to Work Institute, they've done some research into it, it's going to cost a third of the person's salary. So if the role that somebody resigns from was a £30,000 a year role, it's going to cost the company £10,000 to rehire and all of the other potential impacts, the cost impacts. That actually is one of the lowest figures I've seen for it. Deloitte say that it's actually closer to 1.5 times the salary. So for this position, it's closer to £45,000 it's going to cost just to lose one person, which is crazy. But if you think about all the things it's going to impact. So, do you guys have any knowledge of why people are quitting at the moment? What's the word on the street?
A lot of things like mental health or sickness, really.
I'd say totally, yeah. All the people I come across will say they can't hack it, there's something wrong. Yeah, mental health is the number one thing I would say I've seen.
Okay. So this is stats from McKinsey, so a big US company. Globally, the number one reason for people to leave is as a result of lack of career development. Then you've got compensation, number two. You've got stuff about, you've got leadership being very high up there, 34% of people leaving as a result of that. And you've got things like the type of work people are working on, the difference they're able to make. And up there at the top is workplace flexibility as well. So that's on a global basis. In the UK here, according to the CIPD Good Work Index, compensation has gone from number 2 globally to number 1 in the UK. Which is interesting because in previous years there were times when it wasn't all about the pay, and suddenly people want to be rewarded adequately for the work they're doing. That's become the top reason. And it's still about things like job satisfaction, work-life balance, and the type of work people are doing. So there's a running theme, and it will be, I think the thing about mental health might come in as to leadership. What are the skills of the leadership team to be able to support employees? What processes are in place for the leadership team to be able to signpost employees to better ways better means of looking after their well-being. So that's all part and parcel of it. So I've got a modern approach to business that's going to address employee retention. Not me personally, it's out there, it's known, and it is conscious business. Has anybody ever heard of conscious business, conscious leadership, conscious business practices? No? This has come about as a result of corporate social responsibility. And in 2015, there was a conscious business declaration. So it's a global thing, it's just not well known. But when people hear about it, and I'll come on to a little bit about what conscious business is about, they understand how it's got such a positive impact on people, the business and the business itself. So to be a conscious business, the business is looking to implement better ways of working within systems and culture. And every talk I do, every chance I get, I'm talking about systems, culture with people. But it's important because the culture that's all about the atmosphere in a company, the experience people are going to have within the workplace. And the systems need to be there to support that culture and to allow your company to grow. So the two are really important. And conscious business does this to have a positive impact on people and the planet. So there's an environmental aspect to this too. And a conscious business understands that there's something that's known as the 3 Ps. People, planet, and profit. And a conscious business gets that if you put the time and the effort into better supporting or putting activities in place that's going to have more of a positive impact on people and the planet, your profit is naturally going to have a positive impact too. There is a correlation. There's studies out there that have shown that literally you will make more money by focusing on the right things, the things that are going to make you a caring, considerate company. So the sort of company that people want to see out there. So the sort of things that a conscious business will do. Number 1 is all about purpose. Whenever I work with someone, it's the first thing we look at. What's the purpose of that company? Because the purpose is going to drive that business forward, and it can be really inspirational. It can really attract employees to the company, and it can attract customers to the company if you've got a really strong purpose. Behave ethically, so it's all about doing the right thing. So far away from what business always used to be with the little white lies and tucking things under the carpet. This is about doing the right thing. It's really important because that's what people want to see. That's what people react to. They sense when people are lying and they have a negative reaction to it. So this is playing on how people naturally want to operate. Set out to do no harm to people on the planet. I had someone once say to me, do no harm is a bit of a stupid one because we can't do no harm. Maybe we can reduce harm, but do no harm is a bit unrealistic. But it's part of the Conscious Business Declaration, and it's an ethos, it's something to aspire to. So it might not seem realistic to start with, but it is something that's relevant, I think, to mention, to use that wording, to use the do no harm wording. There's having an awareness of the consequence of actions, so how are your decisions, how are your strategies going to impact people on the planet? Back to those two. And a conscious business wants to always improve, to have that continuous improvement. So it's never a case of, hey, I've written my sustainability plan, I'm done for the year, or I'll just knock out these activities and I'll revisit it in 9 months. A conscious business wants to keep doing better, they'll go back to it, they'll work out what they can add to, what new things they can do, so they're continually doing more for people on the planet. And I know it all sounds a bit theoretical, so I've got an example for business. Everybody heard of Patagonia? So they're the big US company that produce outdoor wear and outdoor goods. And they're really well known as being a conscious business. They are looked up to. It's really kind of a no-brainer as to choose these guys to be a great example of a conscious business. They've got a strong purpose, they've got a great sustainability agenda, they donate a lot of money to organisations that need it, and they keep striving to do better. And the interesting thing I think about Patagonia is because they're really well known, they are the obvious choice for me to use here. But there's a company out there that rates retailers, I think they're called something like Good On You, and they've actually rated Patagonia as good and not great, so they don't get the top rating, which I found really interesting. When I looked into it, it was because they thought there was more Patagonia could do. There's stuff around deforestation and use of animal products, those sorts of things that they think Patagonia, and I think that it was paid to employees overseas, so there are things that I think Patagonia can keep doing better. But if you look at the report for Patagonia, they already are doing better. They have raised up from, they were kind of, on some of the categories they were less than good, and kind of in the previous year or two, they've come up to the good status. So they are working on themselves continually, and they are taking notice of what people are saying about them. But they do know as well that people look to them as an example of how to be a great company, a great conscious company, a company out there being a force for good. And the mission statement says it all. Build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. So that's really what they're all about. They really want to do as much good as possible, and they're therefore helping others. They're leading the way there. They're helping show others the way to operate. So let's look at 3 areas then that you can overcome employee retention. We're going to look at improving benefits, showing employees their value, and offering flexible working. And I know there's nothing, new there. There's nothing possibly exciting there. It's kind of things that you've seen time and time again, right? But hopefully, the way you look at them, what you actually implement in these areas, that's what's going to make the difference. So around benefits, first thing to think about is to ask employees what they want. Because so many companies, the leadership team are like, this is going to be great, this is what we're going to offer them, pushes it out there. Sometimes they realise that, hey, not everyone's taking on board the benefits. Sometimes they don't even do the work to figure out that people aren't using all the benefits. But if they aren't putting in place benefits that are actually going to be used and not actually benefit employees, waste of money, complete waste. So it really helps to ask employees what they want. Then you're actually giving the best service you can. You're actually listening to them and giving them what's going to be useful, what's going to be of value for your business. Doesn't matter what the business next door is doing. You might have a completely different way of operating. There might be a completely different focus for benefits according to what your employees have said. You might be at a point where there's only so much money you can put aside for benefits. So you do what's right for your company, and there's lots of different ways to go about it and lots of things to think about in terms of benefits. So here are the sorts of things to think about in terms of benefits. And you've got the classic. Medical and dental insurance has been around for donkey's years, and there are companies out there that specifically work on providing just the medical and dental insurance. That's all they're about. Paid leave. Now, most companies provide paid leave. As soon as someone starts a company, there's X number of days available to them for paid leave. But then what's your policy around increasing the paid leave? Is it after somebody's been here X number of years, it will increase by a day? It's always useful to think about how you're going to better reward someone who's a longer serving employee. What about a day's paid leave on birthday? That's not an idea either, but how many people have actually got it in their policies? And yet, an employee will love the fact that the company's thought about them and they're actually celebrating their birthday with them by allowing them to have the day off. And final point on paid leave, things like duvet days, mental health days, so touching on what you guys said earlier about mental health, that can be so valuable to employees to know that if they're not up to it, they can just send a message to line managers and take the day off and do what they need to recharge, whether that's actually get some sleep, go out in nature, whatever they need to do, they've got that day, and they can come back to the office the next day and they can be back to full health. So it's a really beneficial thing to consider having in your policies. Retail and leisure discounts. We're in a cost of living crisis. Imagine how it feels to an employee to rock up at the checkout in Sainsbury's when they're doing a weekly shop and they get money off their shop. And it's because of their company, because of some sort of policy, some sort of benefit that's in place that's going to help them make it a little bit easier to get through that week, get through the month. And you can apply that to leisure activities as well. There's options for discounts to go to the cinema, and all of these things help. It's going to help to improve the well-being of employees. So it's things that are going to really be appreciated then by them. You've got event attendance, so that could be a full payment or a part payment to something work-related. Maybe there's some sort of talk, some sort of workshop that's going to benefit the employee. So you could provide them access to that. And it could be something, again, on the leisure side of things. Maybe you just make it possible for them to get cheap tickets to go and see some artist they want to see, or go to some sort of gig they want to go to. And again, they're going to think more positively about the company that's looking after them and wanting to do what they can for their well-being. And charity donations. Us humans, we like to be nice, we like to do good for others. It makes us feel nice about ourselves, feel good about ourselves. So having that option where you can easily donate to your chosen charity every month, directly out your pay packet or before that money comes to you, is a positive for a lot of people out there. So there's the sorts of things you can think about in terms of benefits. So there might be a few different things there that you've not thought of before. And there's so many ways to put these in place. It seems like every month there's a new benefits platform. So I've mentioned a couple there, Perkbox, Reward Gateway. Every platform does something different. So there's something out there that can cater for your company, the size of your company, how much money you're going to be able to put aside per employee. There's going to be something out there for you. So it's just a case of working out what you need and going out there and finding the solution for you. Right, showing employees their value. Because employees, they're going to make a difference on the business and on the people around them, whether that's other employees or customers. So when you show that they're contributing, they're having a positive impact on business, others around them, it's going to again make them feel like they're a more valuable part of the company, feel like they're contributing and enhance their well-being. So things that you can do. You can align the employee objectives to the company goals and mission. Now, back in the day, I've worked in companies where I had no idea what the company mission was. They might have showed me when I first started, but quickly forget about those things. So to actually be able to integrate it into the objectives, so the employee knows how they are directly impacting the company, how they are pushing that company forward, helping that company evolve, is a really positive thing. You can show employees how their actions have impacted customers. And that might be some sort of review that's specifically on that particular employee that you can show them. Or it might just be feedback on a particular product or service they've worked on. So they can actually see, okay, this is the difference I've made to the company. So this is kind of really centred on that piece around employees wanting to have meaningful work.
Can I just ask?
Yep.
You talk about showing them a review. What about if that's a negative review? A good
Right. Conscious business. In a conscious business, it's all good. And it is a mindset shift because we've been brought up to think negativity, bad, wrong, and it's going to push people down. But it's about having a business that understands that we want to keep doing better. We like that continuous improvement piece. So if it's a negative piece, you know, do it in the right way. Don't be like, you did a rubbish job, what the hell?
I was thinking
But-
like a Google review.
Yeah,
So say somebody had said,
But
take
you
your
can,
hands to this.
yeah,
or
but you
something.
can look at it and be like, okay, what can we do better?
Mm.
How can we learn from this and really have that attitude? It really is a mindset thing. And there might be sometimes a Google review that's a load of rubbish.
Mm.
So it's knowing the difference between something that's actually constructive and something that's, you know, that's not bad. That dude was having a bad day and they just took it out on that review. So yeah, it's knowing the difference. Then providing opportunities for employees to add value. So not necessarily showing how they're adding value, but allowing them to keep adding value. So the first idea I've got there is to help them contribute to the community. There are loads of projects out there from charities, local schools even, local council activities projects that people can get involved in, whether it's a company, whether it's an individual. But it's one of those things where if they take part in this, they can both make a difference to that company, help them complete their project, they can then feel good about themselves and they can potentially learn some new skills along the way. And that's the second point. You could look for other ways, ask the employee how they would like to learn new skills, because as humans we like to learn and grow. It's kind of one of those things, we don't like to stagnate. So find ways, working with the employee, for them to learn new things. It could be go on some sort of workshop or course, or it could be as simple as shadowing a colleague and learning something new that way. So a skill that's already in the business. But it's going to enable them to be more efficient at their job. And it could enable them to provide a solution that wasn't possible before. So there could be a problem that was never possible to solve. And now they've got this new skill and now they can actually solve this problem. So there's going to be positives to it. And then the final point there is helping the planet, because as I've mentioned, it's all about people and the planet. And it's an interesting one. I mean, there's news stories all the time about the state of the planet, and it is a big thing that people are expecting businesses to contribute. We've got all these national, global targets to meet net zero. And employees actually like to get involved. They like to feel, A, their company cares, and B, they get to contribute to this too. And I haven't got the stat here, I can't remember who said it, but there is a stat out there that says 1 in 4 Gen Z job hunters will choose a job with a company that has a better sustainability agenda, so is doing more for the environment than a company that will pay more. That's how important it is. And that's only going to increase because it was a lower percentage of people, now it's 25% of the young generation coming into the workforce that really care about this, and they will make decisions based on it. Flexible working. I feel like there's been a lot on flexible working, especially in the last couple of years. So that's about enabling employees to choose their working hours and work location. But it's important, the really important thing is to actually ask employees and let them choose, because so many companies, as soon as lockdown was over, were back into the office. We're paying for office space, come on guys, back into the office. And some of them were like, hey, we're going to be good, we're going to, cater for people, we're going to do hybrid. But they weren't really allowing people to choose. This was the company policy, this is what we're going for. And they weren't taking into account that there were some people that loved lockdown. They loved the fact that they could exercise more. They had the time to prepare healthier meals. They spent more time with family. They found loads of benefits from not having to commute, from actually being in the home during the day. Then there were other people, largely younger people who were living in shared accommodation, shared houses, that didn't like it, wanted to be back into the office after the first week, hated it in fact, because they were stuck in a little room, whatever they could afford, bed and a desk, and it just felt so claustrophobic. So there's going to be different opinions on these things. So the important thing is to ask. And before I go any further, has anybody heard about the government announcement that came out a couple of weeks ago about flexible working?
Briefly, I saw something around it.
Yeah.
Isn't it
I don't know all the details,
Yeah.
but the government has given you a year to think about what the flexible working policy is going to be. And after that point, employees are going to be able to come to you. I think it's ones that have been working for you for 26 weeks. So there is some kind of stipulation around it. And they're going to be able to ask to work in whatever way they prefer. And you've got to have a response prepared for it, basically.
But isn't there also another group of people that, when COVID came, they went on furlough and they just don't want to go back to work?
I know less about that side of things, unfortunately. But I can imagine some people
It's like
struggle.
an attitude in some people, a lot of young people I've noticed, don't want to come into work.
Yeah, I experienced the opposite to what you said.
Yeah.
So the younger people didn't want to come back to work,
Yes.
wanted to work from home,
Yeah.
where others were more than happy to. But
Yes.
I agree with what you said, Derek.
I think there's been a change in the mindset of actually going to work as well.
And also
People
the
maybe-
expectation when they get to work. So their expectation of what an average day's workload should be is
Yeah.
a lot less than it used to be.
I can feel a change in people that, you get a job, people come to work and it just feels that people aren't that keen to even go to work.
Like the
Just-
work ethic is like
Yeah.
gone down.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're not that keen, I mean, I'd say even 10 out of 10 interviews, probably 5 turn up. And these are people who are, I'm saying what time, what day, they're saying the time, they're saying the day,
Yeah.
but only 50% actually turn up. It's just a bit of a, feels COVID, I have noticed significantly attitudes have changed.
a lot.
Because if you got paid to stay at home, get 80% of your salary to do nothing, because you weren't allowed to work, I think people are still a bit stuck in that. Definitely, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be two sides to it. There's always going to be those instances, and there'll be the people that just find it gives them a purpose to have work, and not to do work is so demotivating and makes life so miserable. So you're always going to have two sides to it.
So how do you overcome that?
From my experience around putting in place conscious practices within a business, it's allowing employees to do the work that they're going to enjoy more in a way that works for the business still. But then I guess there is a hard line to draw, and if somebody really isn't, if you can provide some support and talk to them and find out what the issue is, because I would say the go-to is always communication. If they really aren't, if they really have got an issue, I mean, that's a problem. If they don't want to work, that's going to fundamentally, that's going to affect them. But if having conversation with them, trying to look for things to improve what they're doing, what they're working on, to make things more exciting, to make things more meaningful. If that doesn't work, you're going to have to draw the line and say this isn't the right fit, you're not the right fit for the company. I don't know the legal side of it, so you have to kind of do things within the law, but
I think sort of on a recent, as you said, Derek, on a recent sort of scale of the level of engagement from people coming into a business is very, very different to what it was, say, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Very different. So they want the salary, but they don't necessarily want to work for the salary level, if that makes sense. And I'm not talking about everybody, I'm
Yeah.
just talking about some.
Yeah.
And it's those some that obviously is the reason why we're here.
yeah.
So
Literally.
how do you overcome that? Because that's their expectation of work before they even join us.
It is literally conversations, setting expectations, and showing that you are attempting to support them to have an enjoyable experience of being in the workplace. Unfortunately, there's only so much you can do as a business. But
So if they're enjoying it but they just don't want to do the work, how do you overcome that side of it? So if they like the environment,
yeah,
but their level of what an average day should be is very different to what you think it should be, how do you get to that?
it's. I think it still is looking at the stand things, conversations, looking at objectives. Potentially, I don't know if there's room for mentoring from senior people in the company that can work with them to better engage them. There are possible things to think about and find out what's going to work for your company. Have some brainstorming sessions, find out what other companies are doing. But it is a case of doing some research and trying to engage them in conversation to improve the situation.
I think we're finding like at interview stage a lot, well, what I found in my previous job was that at interview stage people are so different to how they are. Like they come in, like so many times they come in and they're like, yeah, so I can do this, like I can do this, like we've got, and it's all like fluffy and great. And then they come in, they do the 2-week trial, they do the 3-week trial or whatever, in say an apprenticeship or in another job, and then all of a sudden you start to see the decline then of behaviour or not turning up or no, I'm not going to do this because I don't get.
Reassuring to hear that from somebody else.
Yeah, we found it so much, and especially not just, I used to work as a training provider, kind of coordinator, but it happened in us employing people, but also as an apprenticeship side of things where you get these interviews like, oh yes, like ringing bells, like, yeah, we can do this, and oh, I've got so many different ideas, and then all of a sudden it's a few months, and the only thing we could do from like my experience is a little bit easier with apprenticeships because obviously it's not us that's dealing with it, but having like almost saying, okay, will you have monthly like reviews, and then after those monthly reviews, again, I didn't go through like the legal process, then if the behaviour is starting to deteriorate, saying, well, this is our written record of all of the warnings that we put in place and it's still not happening, like I'm really sorry, but then like you say, it's then having to employ somebody else, do all the training and all of that, so it could be really frustrating. So yeah, I know exactly what you guys are
I just think COVID, traditionally you got a job, you bought a house, you got married, you kind of you worked hard, you got promoted, you became a manager, etc. It was a kind of traditional route, and I think there was a bit of a reset in COVID, and people thinking, actually, I don't want that. I'm not sure I want to work hard like my parents did. There's an easier way. I want to go on Instagram and be an influencer. I'm sure part of that, I see people thinking, I don't actually have to work hard. There's easier ways of doing it. There must be, because there's been a change since COVID.
You're right, because obviously I was working for a corporate during the COVID, and I worked all the way through, and higher management, sort of more senior people, a lot of them gave up completely because for them it changed. So I get what you said earlier about the two sides of it, But for me, it was the younger staff. So us in the middle were the ones who worked all the way through, but we had to pick up everyone else's job. But the younger people who sort of were furloughed, 80% salary, when they were due to come back, and we were thinking, great, we can take a week off or have a break, or they came back. The first thing they wanted, it's summer holidays. We want a week's leave to look after our kids. And so the attitude did change for a lot of people for different reasons. But I do think it has left an element where people coming into the workplace, their expectation is very different than the traditional expectation of going into work is.
But we take on skills, so all we're looking for is a bit of enthusiasm, a bit of get up and go. We literally cannot find that. So we don't even want skills or necessarily qualifications. It's enthusiasm, bit of drive, bit of, bit of go get it. Just don't see much of that at all. At all.
Do you also find, just out of curiosity, that the calibre of CV that you get as well tends to be, say, like, oh, I don't know what you do as a job, but like, say, I don't know, you work in mechanics, and then somebody who's been like a hairdresser for 15 years wants to apply, and then and then you find that you're getting all of these CVs and you're doing all of these interviews for, and completely fair enough, people want a change of like scenery, they want to do something different, but you tend to notice a difference, don't you, between those who literally just want to apply for anything and those that actually want to apply themselves. But once it gets to the interview stage and you see this person and then they're like all bells ringing, like they're great, it's really hard to see the difference between somebody who's genuinely enthusiastic and wants to do the job and somebody that's just wants the salary because it's after COVID and they need the money. But maybe even like monitoring, what I find is that people tend to be a little bit different once they get comfortable around their peers as well at work, and maybe trying to get, not like snoop or anything like that, but just trying to get a bit of feedback from like the rest of the group. And then you tend to, well, that's what I find, you tend to get a real kind of idea about what people are like. It can be frustrating, my experience anyway.
Yeah. I'm going to jump on quickly to things to think about when putting in place for flexible working. So, number one is to trust employees to work in a way that's most effective for them. So, know that if they're choosing to work from home, they're going to have reasons. It's going to make life easier for them, and it will potentially make them more productive as a result. And it's to have the systems in place so that employees can still choose to work from either in the office or from home. And this was set up during COVID, so it's just a case of ensuring those things are still in place. So accessing materials is going to be an easy one. That's going to be definitely in place for businesses. But the connection to each other. During COVID, there were things like the coffee breaks where people were randomly matched to another person in the company, and they got to just have a chat about anything they wanted, not work related, just kind of like a replacement for water cooler moment. Just like are those sorts of things still in place to ensure that some people can work from home? Yes, they've chosen to do it. Yes, it's better for their lifestyle or whatever. Yes, it can be more productive, but they don't want to miss out on having that contact with people still. So is there still a group process in place for that? And is there a process for them to be able to obtain the support they need? When in the office, you can walk up to someone, tap them on the shoulder, ask them a question, say you've got an issue. Is there a process for them to be able to do that when they're working from home? Are they having checkpoints on a weekly basis with the line manager where they know, hey, even if I haven't managed to catch up with them on this day, I'll be able to share some things with them, ask their opinion on things, raise a query. It's having those processes in place. And I would also say to measure productivity on the outcomes rather than time. Just if they're doing their job, if they're completing the tasks that are assigned to them and they're doing it well, that is important too, then that's a good thing, that's a job well done. Some things to think about in terms of putting in place changes around employee retention. So it's always think about systems and culture. Look at if these changes are aligned to the company's purpose, the company's values. What processes need to be amended or put in place in order for this change to be successful? what are the cons? Who needs to be told? When do they need to be told? And the sooner it's done, the better, because then you're going to get feedback on an earlier basis. An impact. What's the impact going to be of this change on people and the planet? And as we said earlier, asking employees what they want is really important. Not just what they want to see, but what their opinion is of this change. Do they see any issues with it? Can they come up with suggestions that are going to ensure that the change can be amended in such a way as to actually be more successful? And when you've had a bit of a brainstorming session and involve people and allow them to contribute, you often find that the solution that at the end of the day is better developed than it would have been without that session in place. That's also going to help getting buy-in and support from people. If you're able to have those conversations early on and they're feeding into the actual change, they're automatically going to be bought into it. They're automatically going to support it because they've tailored the change. And the last point there isn't specifically to one change, it's kind of an overarching thing. It's about working on building strong relationships with employees, which is maybe part of what you guys were talking about just now. Working on having those conversations where they can be open and honest and you can be open and honest with them and you can move forward more successfully as a result of it. If you're interested, I offer a free employee retention audit, 30-minute session where we'll look at 4 key business areas and I'll provide some suggestions for what you could improve to upgrade employee retention in your business. Here are some ways of contacting me, so if you want to directly book it in, you can go to my Calendly link and look for Conscious Business Solutions, or you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, Lucy-Spencer-CDS, or you can email me at lucy@consciousbusinesssolutions.co.uk. And say if you've got any questions, if anything comes up, once we've left today, just message me, email me, and ask me the question. Do you have any more questions for me now? I know you were asking a few things as we went through. Is there anything now we've got to the end?
I just wondered if anybody who's spoken earlier in the group was open to using candidate surveys or employee experience surveys, and then perhaps we can talk about relationship and understanding what people want.
Yep.
That can be a really insightful way of, asking somebody what could you offer our company? Or, is there a reason why your performance isn't delivering in the same way somebody who's in the office? And asking those open questions to maybe understand what this mindset is. I think you're right, that it's quite different. So,
I mean, we do exit interviews.
yeah, face to face.
Yeah.
Try it,
Okay.
particularly if you don't have candidates.
I think anonymous as well. I think people are more likely to be honest if they're not having to say it to someone or maybe.
Yes, very much on how your business, what's the best thing for your business, because for some companies they're going to have to do as you say, the anonymous way. Other companies, if they've been able to put in place that culture of it being a safe environment where people can share, even if it's negative, knowing that it's feedback and it's with a view to improve things, then they're kind of more open to sharing how they feel.
It's hard though to sit over a performance review, isn't it, or to face into an exit interview and feel, oh great, and I'll just say what's needed to get this done and get out. But if you can do a funky kind of, some kind of online survey that's text-based and very appropriate to your audience, you might gain some insights that are really helpful in how you then attract those kinds of candidates and retain them.
We have a lot of telephone calls, and we apply for call handlers,
Yeah.
and there is a real problem with young people answering the phone.
Yeah.
They do not like it. They love texting. They're always on the phone, but they don't pick it up and talk.
Yeah.
And people say, you know, it's not what I thought. But we advertise very specifically it's answering the phone. But they just don't like answering. They'll all sit and look at the phone ringing in the room. I've never seen one like that.
Also, you will.
Okay, carry on.
I was going to say we found that when I used to work for customer service at the Range, where a little bit, it was a few years ago, but again, I was sort of 19, 20-ish, and I found when I first came, it was either I didn't want to, or people didn't want to answer the phone, or they answered it and had no telephone manner. So it was like, well, whatever, that's fine. And then you're literally like, sorry, what was I saying? But it's that I think, I don't know what it is, and me being the royal kind of we, but as I don't know whether it's just not being taught, whether like I'm finding that when I go to other companies and I find with other young people that it's not, you don't have the same kind of, it's just not obvious, if that makes sense. Like some people can come out of school, they go straight into university or college, and then they spend like 4 years, and then they go into a job, and I don't think within that time maybe that's taught as much, like being on the phone, what to say, like sales calls, like myself and Lizzie, we're having training on how to do sales calls because it doesn't feel natural to be able to speak on the phone and to try and like promote something that you believe in, but you just don't have those skills. So yeah, I don't know whether it is something that, I mean you guys probably do, but we've like got somebody coming in to like teach us how to talk on the phone, and it seems like such an obvious thing, but when you've got that,
needed more these days is being aware of how they are different companies, the workplace, and
Perhaps we do need to
it is a
train how to say
Because
hello.
to be fair, they do all know how to do it.
It's
Yeah.
difficult,
We
isn't
have taken it for
it?
granted.
You guys have to
Yeah.
answer the phone at home.
That's right,
Whereas
yeah.
now you don't have to answer
Yeah.
the phone, it rings at home.
exactly.
Well, I've got a phone ring in my house, so why would I
Yeah.
share
Kind of
my
like the front
phone?
door, so it's nice and cold, you can be there 10 minutes after.
I can tell you now, my grandchildren, when they come to my house, are fascinated by our old-fashioned dial phone. Because they did not know what it was.
You guys have to answer the phone, we don't have to.
What's one of those that did this?
well, I watched a video the other day of a younger person, I don't know, the Gen Z, whatever it is, and she must have been like in her teens now, and they were like, oh, how do you answer the phone? And she went like that instead of like that,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, how do you take a photo? And she's like, instead of that, and it's all of those things that I don't think people think about, but again, it's very frustrating. I get what you're talking about with, you know, people, you're trying to like teach people how to do a job, and you say it exactly how it is in the interview process, and
Yeah.
it's still not
No.
going in.
I will obviously mention specifics, but we have several scenarios at the moment where I actually think, and I'm talking because I've recently joined this company,